We all like comfortability. We want to go through life with no pain, all ease. We want to drink when we want to, party all the time, sleep, eat, go where we want to go, buy expensive things. But often the best way to get better in life is to be uncomfortable. As a therapist, I do this with a lot of my clients. We work on exposing those fears that we're afraid of. By doing that, you acclimate your body to that fear. Because we have these thoughts internalized based on past experience that make us think the fear is really dangerous, when more often than not, it's not. We do this in one of two ways. We either expose ourselves to the fear in vivo, or we imagine that fear. And by sitting with that fear long enough, we acclimate to it. And our stress goes down, our anxiety goes down, and we realize it's not as bad as we thought it was. It's just like jumping into a pool of water, and the pool's very cold. And your body feels the cold, and you tense up, and you start shivering. But then after a little bit of time, it gets warmer. The water itself doesn't get warmer though. Your body feels that the water is getting warmer, and you relax, and you feel better about it. It's the same way with fear. Now the trick while you're doing this is that as you experience the fear, you can't do anything to make yourself feel better about the fear. Like if you jumped into that water and you were wearing a heat pack to always keep yourself warm, your body wouldn't acclimate to the cold water anymore. Same way that if you engage in that fear and you try to keep this positive self-talk going, or you go to a party that you're afraid to go to, but you drink at the party to make yourself feel better about it, you don't overcome that fear that way. That's what we call a neutralizing behavior, and we want to avoid that. And that's why exposure therapy is so difficult and so tough to do, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Now, naturally, if you were to engage in this fear head on, you're probably going to feel overwhelmed, like you don't have control of your body and you can't literally do anything about it. That sounds about right, and you probably shouldn't throw yourself into the deep end like that. You have to gradually expose yourself to it. Like for instance, if you were afraid of germs and it causes you to wash your hand frequently throughout the day or clean the house twice a day, you want to start by maybe only cleaning your house once a day, or maybe only washing your hands twice a day. Then, not cleaning your house one day, see how you feel about it. And then, you really want to crank it up a notch once you get to that level. You really want to not clean your countertop for months. You want to touch the trash and see exactly what happens. As disgusting as that sounds, you're going to realize that touching the trash, well, you're not going to die. You're probably not even going to get sick either. Because germs are everywhere. We can't keep everything 100% clean all the time. You want to hit that fear head on and engage with it as much as possible. And the more you do it, the quicker you overcome it. We can look at this through another type of therapy called radically open dialectical behavior therapy. In it, it uses the polyvagal theory, which argues that instead of the two types of stress response we have, which is the fight, flight, and the relaxation, it argues that there are 5. The first is the safety cue. This is the relaxed state where we can engage with others, socialize with others, and overall just have a great time. The second type is the novelty cue. This is when we're aware of something and we're trying to evaluate if it's safe or not. Our ability to socialize kind of gets thwarted. We're more still and we're more focused on that cue to see if it's threatening. The third type is the threatening cue. This is where we're trying to protect ourselves. We are trying to, in that fight or flight state, defend ourselves. And if we are trying to engage in something like talk to someone and we are in this threatening cue stage, we're not trying to converse with someone. We're trying to survive. We're trying to defend our self-esteem. So we're going to think about things that make us feel smart. We're going to think about things that make us seem not inept and not be dumb. The fourth type is the reward cue. And this is you basking in all the rewards that you can see. If you imagine a fox in a hen house, the fox has reached his destination and he's going to go to town on all of the meal that's in front of him. This is very similar to that flow state that we all try to achieve. We're very goal-oriented, we're focused on just a few tasks at the time, and we're not available to react to the random things that are thrown at us. And the fifth is the overwhelming cue. This is the point where we shut down because we feel like we are so overwhelmed, there is nothing to do, and our body is trying to save our internal organs. So, by exposing ourselves to our fear, when we are in that threatening cue stage, but we're not doing anything about that threat, and we just sit there in the moment, our body's going to eventually learn that that threat isn't as threatening as we thought it was, and we're going to move from that threatening cue to the safety cue gradually, and be free to engage in that activity or that thing without any sort of fear. And if we do engage in that trigger, instead of instantly going to the threatening cue, we may just go to the novelty cue and get a little curious about it. But we're going to realize that it's just a thing and nothing to be afraid of. If I were working on with a client a fear of cats, for example, we may gradually get into that process by first talking about cats. The idea of a cat. I may gauge his distress level, and once the distress comes down to a good enough point, we may start looking at pictures of cats. I may be bringing in some cat toys or some cat food, and then eventually, once we get to that point, I'll be bringing in an actual cat, maybe at the opposite end of the room, just to see how the client is doing. And then once they get comfortable with the cat just being in a room, I'll stick the cat on their lap. And then they're gonna get very distressed, but then over time, they're just gonna realize it's just a cat, nothing to worry about. When we are in a world where we can instantly satisfy our fix of dopamine by going to the phone, watching a video, drinking alcohol, eating food, smoking, whatever it is, it's very rational that we shouldn't want to engage in that discomfort. And that's why it's so difficult for so many of us to do that. But by making the conscious effort of putting down the phone, of being brave enough, of being courageous enough to step into the unknown and to not do anything to feel better about that unknown, we're going to realize it's not so bad. The grass may be greener on the other side. We may learn a new skill. We're going to grow wiser. And we are going to move on in life.